Hey Stimmers, today we're going to learn how to make this simple app which is based on the game Heads Up. So it's a game where you have to get people to guess the word that's on the screen when they're not looking at it. Um, and it's going to be academic in nature, so it's going to be vocabulary words from different subjects. So we're just going to make a quick prototype of it. So this is the home screen where you choose your categories. And I'll just show you one of the screens. This is the, say, science screen where you hold it up to your head so that everybody else in the room can see it, and then it will go from there. So I just wanted you to see what it's going to look like, basically, and then we're going to build it from scratch. So to get started, you can either search on Google for MIT App Inventor, or you can type in appinventor.mit.edu. And from this screen, you're going to click here on Create Apps to get started. When you get to the login screen, we're going to use this STEM Student 2. So the email address will be wastemstudent2@gmail.com. And the password will be WA, Woodward Academy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when you get logged in, it's going to probably pull up the last app that was worked on automatically. So I'm just going to click here on Projects, My Projects, to find the one I was working on. So if you've started one, you can find your name here and work on it there. Or you can click on Start a New Project to start a new project. At this point, you want to put your name. If you're working on a group project, you're going to put your names here. If you're working on an individual project like you are for this, it's okay to sign in as yourself instead of WA STEM Student 2. But for this example, I'm going to show you on this user. So see, I cannot use spaces and I cannot use periods. So I'm just going to put Marshall and then click OK. And it's going to load up a blank project for me. Okay, so now that I have this blank white screen, I want to start customizing it a bit. So if you see here in the components, I'm on screen 1, and these are the properties for screen 1. So I'm going to set some of these properties real quick. If I needed to change my app name, I could do it here. I'm going to just show you how to change the background color. So instead of the default, I'm going to just choose a blue. I'm not going to have a background image, but I could. And let's see. I'm not going to worry about an icon right now. But the icon image would be what would appear on the home screen of your tablet or your phone in order to open it. So if you are going to install this on a device, you are going to want an icon image here so that you have something nice to look at when you're about to click to open your app. Otherwise, it's going to be a standard App Inventor icon. For this screen, I'm going to want to specify that this is in portrait mode because I'm going to arrange things, the button sizes to be specific to this shape. So I'm going to change the screen orientation to portrait. And let's see. And I could just call this screen categories instead of screen 1. That's it. All right, so notice when I change it to categories, it shows here. If I didn't want to show that, I could take it off. I could turn off title visible, and then it wouldn't be there. But for now, I'm just going to leave it. It's up to you if you want to use that or not. Now, if you remember the way this was set up, I had 2 columns and 3 rows of a table here of buttons. You can add more if you want, but for what we're going to do, we're going to use this number to make it work. And notice that each of the buttons has a label, and it also has an image in the background to kind of signify that. So just a little note, you're going to get those images from the PowerSchool page for App Design Learning. You can download them to your computer and then upload them to this program. So that is where those are going to come from. Okay, so let's start loading in some of those assets. If I wanted to use images or video or sound, I'm going to need to upload media files. So I'm going to click here on Upload File, choose File, and then I'm going to find it on my computer. Start with Art. Oops. Okay. And then click OK, and then it will upload it, and it's now in the project. So I'm going to quickly do that with my other files. Okay, so I did one more than I needed to, but I have my files here. Now I'm going to be ready to place those into buttons. If you remember, I had 2 buttons by 3 buttons. So in order to get that arrangement, normally when I drag things onto the screen, they start right in the top corner and then they just go from there. I can't really put things beside each other. They just get dropped on. So I'm just going to get rid of those real quick. Don't have to. I can move them around later, but I'm going to get rid of them for now. So this is how you get rid of it. You can either click here and click delete, or you can click here and click delete and it'll go away. Can't do it with the keyboard. All right, so I want an arrangement of a table, and to do that, you go to Layout, and that will allow you to put things beside each other if you want, or vertically if you want, or stack things as you want them to be arranged on the screen. In this case, I want a table arrangement, so I'm going to drag on the table arrangement, and it's here now. And if you look over here, it has 2 columns and 2 rows by default, and it just has an automatic height and width. So I'm going to keep the 2 columns because that's what I want, side by side. But remember, I wanted 3 rows. I'm going to change that to 3 rows. I'm also going to change the height here to fill parent, which means whatever size screen it's on, it will go all the way from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to click the fill parent and click OK. Notice my green box got taller over here. I'm going to do the same thing with width because I want it to fill the entire screen. So I'm going to do fill parent and OK. Now I have it here. Then we go back to user interface, and I'm going to start putting my 6 buttons in. Buttons are things you can click on and can get an action. There's a lot of things here to look at. There's checkboxes, there's labels, there's notifiers, text boxes, password text boxes. But these things like labels, you can put words in, and even images, you can put an image in, but you can't click on those objects. So if you want to be able to tap or click on something, it has to be a button. So I'm going to take a button, I'm going to click and drag it onto the screen. This doesn't work out very well. Give me 1 second. Okay, just for a second, I've changed the screen back to white. You don't need to do that, but I want to show you when I drag the buttons in, it highlights like a blue square, and that's saying where I'm placing it. So this is row 1, column 1. This is row 1, column 2, row 2, column 1, row 2, column 2, 3, and second one. Okay, so those are the 6 places I can place it. I know it looks small, but we're going to make it fill the entire screen. So I can just drop it in there. I'm going to change my color back, and I'll come right back. Okay, so now I'm going to place my other buttons in. Now I can place them side by side. Place them in this arrangement. Okay, so I have my 6 buttons in, and it looks kind of boring. They're up in the corner. they're not filling the screen, there's no image associated, but we're going to fix all of that. So we're going to go through and set the buttons to be a certain portion of the screen. So if you think about it this way, I want it to be half of the screen this way, and because I have 3 rows, I want it to be about a third of the screen going up and down each button, and that will get me 6 buttons on the screen. So I'm just going to take basically 100% and divide it by the number of buttons that are going across or going down for the height or width. So on button 1, so I'm clicking, make sure I have button 1 selected. It has a little green box around it when it's selected. I'm going to go over here and change the height and the width. So right now it's on automatic, so that's going to be based on the contents or where it's going. So I want the height to be 1/3 of the entire screen. So down here for percent, this is the percent of the screen that you're using. So I'm going to change it to 33%. And okay. And that makes it taller. And then for the width, I want it to fill half of the screen. So I'm going to change it to 50% of the screen. Click OK. I'm going to go now to button 2 and do that same thing. Change it to 33% height and 50% width. So we want to pause the video here and do the other 4 buttons. Okay, so now you should have your 6 buttons arranged as I do here. Now what I'm going to do is put in the images so it looks a little better. So I'm going to go back to button 1. And if you look down here, right below the width is image. If I click on that none, then it's going to give me a list of all the images I've uploaded. If I haven't uploaded any, I can always click upload file and do that process. But I've already done that. So I'm going to click make the first button science, click OK. You see it came in. And I'm going to do the second one as math. I'm going to do the third one as social studies. Do the fourth one as literature. And do the most important one, STEM. That's the 5th button. And button 6 will be arts. Okay. So now I have those, but you notice that this text, first of all, it doesn't say the category name, and it also is not visible. So we need to go back in and make that text on the buttons, the category labels, look a little better. So I'm going to go back to button 1 now. And if I scroll down through the properties, if you look down here where it says text for button 1, this is telling me what the button label will be. So I'm going to change this to science right now. And black on this dark purple doesn't show up. So I'm going to change the color to orange. And then for each of the buttons, I'm going to try to find a font size that works with the label and the button size. So for science, I'm going to set that to the font size here to about 30. And I'm also going to make it bold. Nope, 30 is not big enough. Let's make it 38. All right, so I'm going to go to button 2, math. Math is a short word. So I'm going to try 45 for it. Change the button text to math. And set the text color to orange. That looks good. Now let's do social studies. So I'm going to set it to bold. I'm going to go ahead and type in social studies first and see what that looks like. All right, change the color to orange. And then let's make it bigger. If I look at size 38, for example, that pretty well. We'll go with 38, I guess. Then this will be literature, orange, gold. This would be about 30. And STEM is a really short word, so I could probably do 45 for that as well. Color orange. And arts is a short word. Bold. 45. Here, arts. Okay, so now my home screen looks good. And each of these buttons are going to take me to another screen, but those screens don't exist yet. So what I want to do is add those screens. So I'm going to click here on Add Screen, and I'm going to make a screen for each of those 6 buttons. So I'm going to say Add Screen, and I want to make a screen called Science. Add Screen, and make a screen called Math. Add Screen. It takes me to those. That's why it's changing like that. I don't remember the next one. So Arts. Add Screen. Social Studies. Let's not do any spaces. Add Screen. Literature. I think that might be it. Let's see. No. 1, 2, 3. We got one more. Go back to the first one. I left out science, math, social studies, literature. I left out STEM. Add screen. And I'm going to use all caps STEM. All right. So now I've created those pages. I'm going to show you how to make these buttons take you to those pages. So just so you know, you can't test it out on the computer. You have to test it out on a device or an emulator. But in class, we'll be using devices, so you can do that. So no matter what I do on the computer, it's not going to take me to it. I have to have that set up on another device. So to program these buttons, I'm going to go to the block screen. So right now I'm in Designer, so I can design what it looks like. And blocks is kind of behind the scenes. So I'm going to click on blocks. And over here, it would have been a good idea to name these. So I'll show you real quick. So if I click on button here, I'm going to rename the button to be science so that I just know which button it is. And I'm going to do the same for the others. Button 2 was math. Button 3 was social studies. Button 4 was literature. Button 5 was STEM. And button 6 was arts. I want to make it so that when I click on button science, that it takes me to the science page. So I'm going to click on here, science, and that gives me all of the blocks that are associated with that object, which is a button. So I'm going to choose the first one. When science is clicked, so let's just say when science is clicked, do something. And okay, the command that will take you to another screen is actually under control. So I'm going to now click on control. And I'm going to scroll down and find open another screen name. So I'm going to pop in that command there. So saying when science is clicked, I want you to open another screen named what? In order to put that name here, I'm going to go to the text fields and choose this blank text field. And then I'm going to type in the name of the screen I want it to go to. And I want it to go to science. Notice I put a capital letter in science. I have to spell it exactly the same as this, with the same capital letters, same spacing and everything, or else it will not work. So that's why I try to keep it one word instead of with spaces. So I'm going to type science with a capital S. That's not science. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the math button. So now what I'm going to do to copy this, I'm just going to right click, duplicate. Notice it has a red X here. That means I have one button doing two different things, basically. So instead of that, I'm going to choose here math, and then I'm going to change this to math. So when math is clicked, I want to take me to the math page. So what I want you to do is go ahead and program the other 4 buttons to go to those pages that are here. And you're going to turn that in. But I'm going to go ahead and go to the next step, which is going to be designing one of those pages. So we're going to do the science page. And I'm going to go back to the designer. Okay, so if you think about HeadsUp, it should be arranged in landscape. It should have a blue background. So I'm going to start setting that up. So let's set the background color as blue. And I'm going to go down here and change the orientation to landscape. Because you would normally like hold the phone sideways on your head. And instead of doing a layout this time, I'm going to only just have 2 things here ever. So I'm going to just go over here to the alignment here. I'm going to change these to center so that when I put the stuff on, it'll be in the center of the screen. And what I'm going to need here is a button, which will kind of start the game. And I'm going to put in a label right below that, which will be the word that it will be displayed. Now there's a couple other things that you're going to need to include here. One of those is an accelerometer sensor. So if I go down here to sensors, I'm going to grab this accelerometer. Remember, for HeadsUp, you have to tilt the phone down to change the word. So the accelerometer will allow you to do that. So I'm going to need an accelerometer. So I'm going to drag that on, but you notice when I do that, it goes down here into non-visible components because that's not something that's going to be on the screen. I'm also going to need a clock. We'll understand why later. And I'm also going to need a database to store the list of words. So I'm going to go down here to storage, and I'm going to use TinyDB. Again, just for organization, I'm going to change this TinyDB to ScienceDB. So the DB stands for database. Just so I can keep track of things, because you're going to have several of those. These other things probably don't matter as much. All right, next thing I'm going to do is kind of make it the way I want it to look. So this start button is supposed to say start for one. So I'm going to click on button here. I'm going to rename it to start. Change it here. I'm going to go down here to text for button 1 and change it to start. Exclamation mark. All right, so let's make this button look a little better. So instead of this gray, let's do something a little more exciting. It is a start button. So when I think of start, I think of green. So I'm going to go here to background color, change it to green, and I'm going to make this button bigger. So let's do it about a third of the width of the screen. And let's do the height at about 40% of the screen. And we're gonna make the font a lot bigger. Let's do 45, I think. That's pretty good. And make it bold. And instead of black, let's change the text color down here to maybe not light gray, dark gray. Okay, so our start button's ready to go. Then let's go down to this label. Black on blue is not going to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and set the label color to white. And I'm going to set the font size pretty large, maybe to 50. But the thing is, this is not going to be here in a little while. So in other words, when I start the game or this screen, I don't want any text here. So for now, I'm going to delete this, and it's not going to be there, but I wanted to see what it looked like. All right, so that is what my science screen will start out looking like. Now we're going to have to do some code to get it to do what we want it to do.